I used to leave the radio on when I went to sleep, just some soft classical station, low enough to blur the silence but not loud enough to fill it. After Emily died, the silence wasn't just empty, it was suffocating. It didn't whisper or creak. It roared. It roared in my ears at night like a storm buried under the floorboards, like the house was groaning beneath the weight of all the things she didn't get to say. The only thing that ever helped was pretending someone else was awake with me. That's why I kept the radio on. We had been married for 11 years. Not always easy, not always romantic, but deeply, utterly real. The kind of marriage that could spend hours in silence without discomfort, and laugh together at the most absurd things. We met at a coffee shop. She spilled an entire latte on my laptop. I was furious, and then she smiled. That smile didn't fix the laptop, but it rewired something inside me. Emily died in her sleep. No warnings. No pain, according to the coroner. One moment she was beside me, her head tilted slightly toward my shoulder as she breathed, and the next morning, she wasn't breathing at all. There was no gasp, no struggle, just stillness that never ended. The first night without her, I didn't sleep at all. The second night, I tried. I set her pillow up next to mine. It still smelled like her shampoo. I kept the lights low and the curtains open, in case her spirit wanted to find her way home. I wasn't superstitious. I just needed something to believe. By the third week, I couldn't bear the silence anymore. That's when I started hearing her again. It began subtly. I'd wake up at night to the faint rustling of sheets, on her side. Sometimes, I could almost feel the warmth next to me, like she'd just climbed back into bed. I told myself it was grief. The mind clinging to scraps, rebuilding comfort out of echoes. Then, one night, I heard her whisper. I was half asleep, teetering on that delicate edge of dream and waking. The window was open, and the breeze was whispering through the curtains. But layered beneath that wind, low, rhythmic, I heard it. Don't forget the lemon tea. It was her voice. Muffled. Soft. The same tone she always used when reminding me of something I'd forget at the grocery store. I sat up, heart pounding, staring into the empty room. Nothing. Just darkness and the low hum of the city in the distance. But that voice haunted me all day. Not because it was frightening, but because it was so casual. As if she were still here, drifting somewhere between rooms. The next night, I brought out my old digital recorder, the kind she used when interviewing people for her freelance work. I set it on the nightstand, pressed record, and left it running while I slept. At 3:12 a.m., she spoke again. This time, it wasn't gentle. It was strained, breathless, like she was trying to force her way through something heavy. Don't let it in. I replayed the audio at least 100 times. I even emailed it to her sister, pretending I found it in old recordings. She said it sounded like Emily, but couldn't be sure. She'd lost her too, after all. Her memory of that voice was fraying like mine. But I knew. It was her. Each night after that, the whispers returned. They weren't every night, only on certain ones. And always around the same time. Between 3:10 and 3:20 a.m. Sometimes it was warnings, sometimes it was just mumbling. Incoherent, like she was speaking through a dream. But every time I listened, I felt her closer. And then I made the mistake of answering. I told myself I wouldn't speak to her. It felt like drawing a line in the sand, a fragile line, sure, but one that helped me believe I still had control over what was happening. Because if I talked to her, if I acknowledged her voice like it was still here, what did that make me? But loneliness is a patient hunter. The night I answered back, the wind outside was restless. One of those nights where the whole house creaks like it's remembering storms from decades past. I couldn't sleep, and the digital recorder was blinking softly on the nightstand, picking up nothing but silence so far. 3:12 a.m. I sat up, staring at the door to the hallway. It had been left slightly ajar, the way Emily used to prefer it. She said she liked to let the house breathe at night. I always thought that was silly. But now, I wasn't so sure. Then, the whisper came again. Faint. Distant. Warbled like it was coming through water. Mark. My name. Just once. Barely audible. But clear. I held my breath, waiting. Sometimes it was only one word. But then came more. Mark, the hallway. Don't. She didn't finish the sentence. The recorder caught all of it, but no matter how many times I played it back the next morning, the final word always dissolved into static. That was the night I stood in the hallway for over an hour, staring into the darkness. Nothing happened. Nothing moved. But I swear to God, it felt like something was watching me. Just beyond the edge of where the light from the bedroom spilled. The next night, I waited until I heard her. This time, I sat up and whispered, "Emily." I felt ridiculous saying it. Like a kid afraid of ghosts in his closet. But the moment I spoke, the air around me seemed to contract, pulling in like lungs after a gasp. She answered. "I'm here." 3 words. Delicate. Full of sadness. I stood there frozen, tears prickling my eyes. I hadn't heard her say that since the hospital room, when she comforted me through her last cold. I whispered, "Where are you?" Silence. Then static. From the recorder, even though I hadn't played it. The little red light flickered to life on its own. "Behind, she whispered, cutting in and out." That was all. The next morning, I tore the bedroom apart. I checked behind the dresser, behind the mirror, behind the old bookshelf she had insisted we keep even though it leaned a little too much to one side. Nothing. But when I moved the bed slightly to vacuum, I found something wedged between the wall and the floorboard, one of her old sleep journals. Spiral bound. Dog-eared. She used to keep it tucked under her pillow, jotting down her dreams in the morning like they were clues to something. I flipped through the pages. At first, they were normal. Dreams about running late, being back in college, losing her teeth, classic stuff. Then, halfway through, things turned darker. Dreamt the hallway was deeper than before. It goes on forever now. The doors keep changing. He was outside the window again. Faceless. Waiting. Whispers are clearer. They aren't mine anymore. And finally, written in trembling script. Don't sleep too deeply. The space between is thinning. I put the journal down and just sat there. The house creaked again. Just wood settling, I told myself. Just wind through the vents. But I stopped leaving the bedroom door open after that. A week passed. Each night, the whispers became less frequent, but more urgent. She wasn't just mumbling now, she was trying to communicate. The recorder captured fragments. The thing in the wall. "You're not alone, Mark. It wants your voice." I tried to Google things like spirit communication through dreams and paranormal sleep recordings. Most of what I found was garbage, blog posts full of blurry photos, videos with spooky music overlays. But one thread on an old forum stood out. A user named SleepDoors69 had posted 2 years ago. My wife died suddenly. A week later I started hearing her in my sleep. Not dreams. Voices. She warned me not to answer, but I did. Now I can't stop hearing them. I think she's trying to drown them out. There's something else with her. Something that's not pretending to be her, it's trying to replace her. The user never posted again. His last message: it lives in the space where silence used to be. The following night, I tried to ignore the voice. I left the recorder off. No radio. I just wanted one night of peace. One night where I could close my eyes and believe that grief wasn't alive in my walls. I woke at exactly 3:17 a.m. Only it wasn't a voice this time. It was a scratching. Like fingernails, but not quite. Something more, deliberate. Measured. The sound came from inside the wall behind the headboard. A soft scrape, then silence. Another scrape. Silence. I sat up, heart racing. Then. Mark. Louder now. More confident. Why did you turn it off? I reached for the recorder, but it was already blinking, recording, even though I hadn't pressed the button. I need you to hear me, she said. It's using me. I can't stop it for much longer. What's using you? I whispered. I didn't expect a response. But I got one. The thing that wears my voice. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat in bed, knees pulled to my chest, staring at the blinking red light of the recorder. I didn't dare play it back right away. I already knew what it had caught. Her voice, its voice, saying it was wearing her. That phrase lodged itself in my head like a splinter. Where's her voice? Like a coat. Like a disguise. Like something crawling inside her sound, hollowing it out. I didn't go to work the next day. Didn't shower. I played the recording back over and over again, analyzing the tone, the cadence, the breath spacing. It was hers. But there was something wrong underneath. A hiss, a subtle distortion in the background, like someone dragging a wet towel across a microphone. I tried an audio filter to isolate the background noise. What I got chilled me. Behind her words, behind my wife's voice, was another voice, low and gurgling, speaking in time with hers. A mirror, whispering slightly after she spoke. Like it was learning. Sinking. That's when I realized what the thing had been doing, it was practicing. It hadn't just mimicked her voice, it had studied it. And with each word, it got closer to perfect. I began checking everything in the house. I pulled down every photo of Emily, studied every frame. I listened to her old voicemails, watched home videos just to remind myself what she truly sounded like. I needed an anchor. Something to tell real from fake. One voicemail stood out. It was from 3 years ago, when she'd gone on a weekend retreat with her sister. I'd saved it because she was drunk and giggling and said, "Don't burn the house down, you big dumb idiot. I love you." The cadence, the joy, the playfulness in her voice, that was her. That voicemail was real. What I'd heard in the recorder. It was close. Too close. But flat. Empty. Like a machine reading a script. Still, it was getting better. That night, I placed mirrors across the bedroom. 2 on the dresser, 1 on the nightstand. I don't know why. I just felt like I needed to see the room from every angle. See if anything was moving that shouldn't be. I left the recorder running again. This time, I pressed my phone to it and kept the home voicemail message open, ready to compare tones side by side. 3:12 a.m. came. Then 3:17. No voice. Only scratching. Then the mirror on the dresser shifted. I swear on Emily's grave, it didn't fall, didn't rattle. It turned, like someone was adjusting it to get a better view of me in the bed. And then her voice came, not from the recorder, not from the walls, but from behind me. "Mark, come to bed. I'm cold." It sounded like her. Almost perfectly. But not quite. I turned slowly. Nothing there. But the bed beside me was indented. As if someone had just climbed in. The recorder picked up my breathing. The quiet. And then. "Why won't you look at me?" I didn't scream. I wanted to, but I didn't. Instead, I reached for the old voicemail and hit play. Emily's voice filled the room. And the indentation beside me lifted. The pressure in the air dropped, and the static on the recorder spiked, louder than ever before. So loud, in fact, that it made the file corrupt. Gone. I tried re-recording the next night, but the voice didn't return. Just the scratching. And sometimes, giggles. Not Emily's giggle. Something aping it. Like a child pretending to laugh. I began to wonder if I'd gone too far. If by answering her, I had invited it deeper. If maybe I'd welcomed it in the way you crack a window without meaning to and wake up with the house full of snow. The following week was quiet. No whispers. No scratches. No static. Just silence. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe I had resisted just long enough to starve it. Until one night, I heard a knock at the front door. I checked the time. 3:14 a.m. No one knocks at 3:14 a.m. My legs moved without me. I opened the bedroom door slowly and stepped into the hallway. The knock came again. 3 soft raps. Not forceful. Not urgent. Familiar. Like the way Emily used to knock on the bathroom door when I locked myself in for too long. "Hey," she'd call out. "You alive in there?" I reached the front door, my hand hovering over the knob. Something inside me screamed to stop. But then came her voice. "Mark. Please. I forgot my keys." Soft. Calm. Confused. Just like she would have said it on any normal night. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. Just empty street. Then, slowly, the voice came again, this time from the other side of the door. "I'm so cold, Mark. Let me in." I stepped back. Then it whispered, right next to the wood, "You're getting better at ignoring me. But you'll slip. Eventually." I backed away into the hallway, breath caught in my throat. The voice continued, but now, it sounded like me. It whispered, "You'll let me in. Because you miss me." I stayed awake until dawn, barricaded in the bedroom with every light on and the voicemail playing on loop. That morning, I called Emily's sister and asked her if she'd ever experienced anything strange after Emily passed. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said, I used to hear her in my dreams. Whispering. But not to me. To something else. She paused again. And when I woke up, I always felt like I'd lost her again. Like something was tugging at her, like she was trying to get back but kept being pulled somewhere colder. Do you still hear her? I asked. Not anymore, she said. I stopped sleeping in our old house. Sold it. Too much quiet. Something lives in quiet. That night, I recorded everything. I left 3 recorders running in 3 different parts of the house. Only one picked up sound, the one in the attic. But what it recorded wasn't a voice. It was breathing. Not human. Wet, slow, gurgling like lungs filled with water. And then a faint whisper. Almost ready. The attic had always felt off. Emily called it the sad room. Low ceiling, slanted beams, only one dusty window that never fully opened. We used it for storage, holiday boxes, old furniture, and the boxes from when we first moved in that we never quite got around to unpacking. Emily avoided it. I always thought it was the claustrophobia, or maybe the smell of insulation and mothballs. But now, I knew better. That night, I climbed the attic ladder slowly, flashlight in one hand, recorder in the other. My heart thumped with every creak of the wood underfoot. The air grew heavier as I ascended, thick, damp, like the room was holding its breath. I clicked on the flashlight. A thin, pale beam sliced across the clutter. Nothing moved. The recorder was exactly where I'd left it. The battery, somehow, was dead, despite being fully charged that morning. I picked it up and played the file back on my phone using a data cable. The audio was quiet for the first hour. Then the breathing started, slow, labored, like someone asleep in a dream that never ends. Then the whisper, almost ready. I stared at the far corner of the attic, the part with the sloped ceiling and the old mirror Emily had wanted to toss out years ago. The mirror was still there, wrapped in a dust-covered sheet. And something inside me said, that's where it is. I didn't touch the mirror that night. Instead, I started sleeping with noise again, constant, loud, erratic noise. I bought a white noise machine. I left the TV on static. I even played the voicemail from Emily over and over like a prayer. For a few nights, it worked. No voice. No scratches. But then it adapted. It started using the noise. One night, in the static from the TV, I heard my name. Not loud, just a syllable woven into the hiss, repeating every 30 seconds like a loop. Like a needle skipping on vinyl. Mark. 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 And then, let me be her again. I turned the TV off. Sat in the dark. Listening. That's when I heard the sound of breathing again, right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But the mirror on the hallway wall had fogged up, as if someone had been standing in front of it. Breathing. I wiped it with my sleeve. And saw my reflection, blink. But I hadn't. I didn't go back to the attic until the following weekend. I'd spent the last 2 days researching every weird folkloric explanation I could find, doppelgangers, possession entities, sleep-talking spirits, even something called a vocal mimic from Inuit legend. A being that hides in silence, borrowing familiar voices to lure the grieving. They had one thing in common: you can't banish what you let in yourself. So I climbed back up. This time, I brought salt. And a hammer. I pulled the sheet off the mirror. The glass was warped slightly, foggy with age, its wooden frame cracked at the corners. Emily had always said it felt wrong. Not just ugly, wrong. I stared into it. For a second, I expected to see her. To see myself with her beside me, the way we used to stand brushing our teeth together. But the reflection was empty. Not broken, just delayed. I raised the hammer. And that's when her voice came, clearer than ever. "Mark. Please don't." I froze. The voice was pleading. "I'm trapped. It took my voice, but I'm still here. Behind the mirror. Don't leave me with it." I swallowed, unsure if I was crying or shaking. "If it's really you," I whispered, "tell me something only you would know." A pause. Then. "You left the ring in the lasagna box when you proposed because you were nervous I'd say no." My blood ran cold. That wasn't in any video. Any journal. No one knew that. Not even her sister. That was real. I lowered the hammer. She whispered again, "It's hungry. It needs someone to listen. If you destroy the mirror now, I'll be lost." "I don't understand," I said. "It's using me as bait. But I'm still fighting. I just need more time." I covered the mirror back up. Walked downstairs. Sank into the couch and stared at the wall for hours. I didn't know if I'd just been manipulated, or if I'd actually hurt her. But then the recorder in my pocket began to play back on its own. And what I heard chilled me. It wasn't the attic conversation. It was a voice, my voice. Saying, "It's me, Emily. I'm home now." Followed by her laugh. And then both voices overlapping, merging into one low, warped tone. Something was practicing again. That night, the dreams returned. Only they weren't dreams. I was back in our bedroom, but the walls were too tall. The corners stretched upward into endless black. The mirror stood at the foot of the bed, uncovered. In its surface, I saw Emily, smiling. Then her face melted, slowly, like wax. And the thing beneath grinned and said, "You can't keep sleeping through this." To the garage and covered the attic hatch with heavy furniture. But it didn't help. Because the voice wasn't trapped in the mirror anymore. It had learned how to move. The first sign came on the fourth night of isolation. I was walking past the kitchen when I heard the kettle whistle. I hadn't turned it on. I reached for the handle, but stopped when I saw the stove's red light blinking, exactly the way Emily would leave it when she forgot to shut it off. Then the voice came, from right beside me. "Lemon tea," it whispered. "Like I used to make." I spun around. Empty kitchen. Then came the giggle, soft, choked, forced. And suddenly, I knew it wasn't her. It wasn't even trying anymore. Not fully. It was using her as bait, but now it was enjoying the game. I started writing down everything. Times. Voices. Sounds. What it said, when it said it, and what was happening around me. Patterns began to form. Always between 3:12 and 3:17 a.m. always preceded by a quiet noise. Scratching, breathing, footsteps, or the kettle always ends when I answer it or when I play the voicemail. The voicemail became my shield. I started keeping it playing on a loop. The real Emily. My anchor. The last proof of her voice before it was stolen. And then, one night, the file corrupted. No warning. No power loss. No user error. Just, gone. And in its place, on my phone's audio list, was a new file. No title. Just a timestamp, 3:17 a.m. I hit play. The recording began with silence. Then footsteps. Then my voice, "It's me, Emily. You can trust me." Then her voice, "Okay. I'm coming in." And the sound of the front door unlocking. I hadn't spoken those words. She hadn't either. It was a recording of a conversation that never happened. But sounded like it did. A fabricated memory, planted like a seed. It was trying to convince me that she had come back. I bought an EMF detector. A ridiculous thing, really, but I was desperate. Paranormal hunters online swore by them. The thing lit up like a Christmas tree near the attic, even when I cut power to the entire floor. There was something up there. Or maybe inside the mirror. Maybe behind the glass. But the house wasn't just haunted. It was learning how to haunt better. Every day, the voice grew clearer. Every night, it got bolder. I started to hear it during the day. In the shower drain. On the radio static between stations. From the floorboards under the bed. "I miss you," it would whisper. "Let me be her again." Then came the night I broke. I just returned from the store, needing to leave the house, feel fresh air, human interaction. I walked in the front door to the smell of lemon tea. Hot. Fresh. There was a mug on the table. Steam rising. My breath caught. I picked it up. Still warm. Emily's favorite cup. The one I'd packed away in the box with her things last year. Then I heard the soft sound of water dripping. In the bathroom. The light was on. I pushed the door open slowly. On the mirror was a message, written in steam. "She's almost gone. You're next." That night, I dreamed of Emily again. But this time, it wasn't the melting face. It wasn't the monster wearing her voice. It was her. The real her. She was sitting on the edge of our bed, crying. Her hands were over her mouth. Her body trembled. "Mark," she said. "I've been trying to reach you. It knows I'm here. It's been using me to find you. Every time you answered, you brought it closer." "What is it?" I asked. She looked at me, her eyes full of pain. "A listener," she whispered. "It waits for grief. Then it listens. And the more you speak to it, the more it becomes who you lost." I reached out. She backed away. "If you let it in," she said, "it won't leave. Not ever." I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. I knew what I had to do. That morning, I uncovered the attic mirror for the last time. I stared into it. And this time, it stared back. Not a reflection. A face. Not Emily's. Mine. But wrong. The eyes too wide. The grin too slow. Then it said, "Mark. Please. I just want to come home." I lifted the hammer. "Goodbye," I said. And I smashed it. Glass shattered like ice. A blast of air hit me, thick and cold, and the entire attic screamed. Not loudly. Not even with sound. It was a feeling. The scream of something being cast out, not with rage, but hunger. I haven't heard her voice since. No whispers. No breathing. The house is silent now. I still miss her. But I know now that silence isn't always a curse. Sometimes, it's protection. And sometimes, grief isn't something to let go of. It's something to hold on to tightly, so nothing else can crawl inside. The silence didn't last. For the first few days, I believed it had. The shattered mirror, the cold blast in the attic, the presence gone. No whispers. No false footsteps. No manipulated recordings. I slept, truly slept, for the first time in nearly a year. And for a little while, it felt like the haunting had ended. But grief has depth. And silence isn't always empty. It started with the phone. I'd tossed my old phone in a drawer after the voicemail file corrupted, after the voice began using it as a channel. I bought a new one. Factory sealed. Never synced with the old device. No contacts, no cloud backups. Clean slate. Or so I thought. A week after the attic, I received a call from unknown number at 3:14 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Curiosity got the better of me in the morning. I played the message on speaker, expecting static. Or silence. But I heard Emily's voice. Crisp. Real. Gentle. Hey, babe. Just wanted to check in. You've been quiet. I miss you. Click. That was it. No distortion. No mimicry. It was her. But it couldn't be. That voicemail was never recorded. Not on my phone, not on hers. And she never called me, babe. She hated that word. It was the first sign something was wrong. I checked the call log. There was no number. No record. Just the message. I deleted it. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., the kitchen light turned on by itself. I walked in, expecting a short circuit, a faulty switch. Instead, I found the same mug, Emily's lemon tea mug, on the table. This time, it was cold. Next to it was a napkin. Scrawled in the corner, in handwriting I almost recognized. If it's not your voice, it's not real. I started hearing things again. Not voices. Memories. Little moments from years ago. The creak of Emily's footsteps when she came home late from work. The soft hum of her in the shower. The faint piano chords she used to play absent-mindedly. They played through the house like echoes. Not recorded. Replayed. The house wasn't haunted. It was replaying me to myself. I began to realize, the listener wasn't just after her voice. It had learned mine too. One night, I heard the front door open. No wind. No break-in. Just the sound of the handle turning, the soft click of the lock disengaging, and the groan of the hinges. I rushed to the hallway, but it was empty. Then I heard her voice. Not a whisper. Not in my head. But clear, in the living room. I made your tea. Lemon. No sugar. Just how you hate it. She laughed. I turned the corner. No one. The tea mug sat on the coffee table, still steaming. And beside it, my old recorder. But I hadn't used that in weeks. I picked it up. It was blinking red. Recording. I played the audio. What I heard made me drop it. Emily's voice. Mine. Both speaking at once. overlapping, arguing, begging, laughing, like two radios on different stations bleeding into each other. Then a third voice. Low. Deep. Not a mimic. Something else. Something original. You were never listening, it said. But you heard her. Now I'm in you. That night, I dreamed of mirrors. Thousands of them. Each one reflected a version of me, but none of them blinked. They just stared. Then one whispered. You're not dreaming. You're remembering. I woke to find the recorder gone. I searched the entire house. Nothing. But on the kitchen table was a fresh note. You said her name 42 times in the past month. You brought her back wrong. I started staying at hotels. Different ones, each night. No patterns. No routine. Always crowded, always noisy. But it didn't matter. Because one night, I walked into the bathroom and found the mirror fogged. Written across it. Noise doesn't stop memory. And behind me, in the reflection, stood Emily. Smiling. And beside her, me. But not me. The same wrong smile. Too perfect. Too slow. Like a wax figure learning how to move. I turned quickly, nothing there. The fog vanished instantly, like it had never been written. I went back to the house. Burned the mug. Smashed every remaining mirror. Tore down the attic ladder and sealed the hatch. But I knew it wasn't the house anymore. It was me. The listener hadn't left. It had followed. It didn't need the mirror. It needed grief. And I still carried too much of that. I've stopped trying to fight it. Instead, I speak to Emily every night before bed. Not to summon her. Not to call her back. But to tell her what I should have said before. I love you. I miss you. I forgive myself. Because silence isn't the enemy. But what waits inside it is. And if I fill that silence with something real, maybe it won't have room to speak back. I started keeping a journal again. Not the digital kind. Pen and paper. Something real, tangible, something the thing inside me couldn't touch or erase. I read that handwritten words carry a stronger emotional imprint, like anchoring memory to something more human. I filled it with small details, the way Emily laughed when she tripped over her own shoes, the way she'd rub her thumbnail when she was thinking, the half-finished crossword puzzle she always left on the kitchen table. These were things the listener couldn't fake. Wouldn't fake. They were too small. Too human. Too intimate. That was my hope, at least. Because I could still feel it, in me. Not like possession. Nothing that dramatic. But in my thoughts. My rhythms. The gaps between words when I spoke aloud. I'd find myself talking to no one, responding to something that hadn't spoken. Or maybe had. One morning, I woke to find I'd recorded myself sleep-talking. My phone wasn't set to record. My new phone had no audio apps installed. No permissions granted. But in the voice memos folder, there was a file. 3-17am.wave. I played it. It was me, speaking slowly, carefully. Emily, I whispered. Please. I miss you. Then another voice, layered beneath mine, mimicking. Emily. Please. I miss you. Over and over, slightly offbeat. like a child learning lines for a school play. Then one final voice, low and tired. Closer. I saw a therapist. Didn't mention anything supernatural. Just said I'd been hearing things. Sleep issues. Residual grief. They prescribed something to help me sleep. I took it that night. And that's when it happened. Not a dream. Not a voice. But a pulling. I felt like I was being dragged, not bodily, but mentally, like my mind was a thread and something had grabbed the end of it. Tugging. Gently, persistently. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my bedroom. I was in a hallway. Dark. Endless. Cold. Doors on both sides. Identical. Seamless. Like hotel rooms in a dream you can't wake up from. At the end of the hall stood Emily. She wasn't melting. She wasn't smiling. She was scared. "Mark," she said, "you're not supposed to be here." "Where is this?" I asked. She looked behind her. "Where it waits. This is where it takes the ones who answer too often. You need to leave." "I don't know how," I whispered. She ran toward me, grabbed my hands. "You do know. You always knew. You just have to stop listening. Stop inviting." Her hands started fading through mine. "You're dreaming," she said, "but if it learns to keep you here, it won't need to mimic anymore. It will become." I woke up choking. Not on breath. On silence. The room was too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears, makes your heartbeat feel like thunder. I reached for the noise machine. Nothing. No power. I reached for the wall switch. Still nothing. The power was out. Only, it wasn't. The digital clock on the nightstand was still glowing. 3:17 a.m. Then the static returned, not from the machine, but from everywhere. From the walls. The windows. The air. And then a single voice, mine, said, "Shoo, just listen." The next morning, I drove for hours. Nowhere in mind. Just needed to move. Get away from the house. From the noise. From the absence of it. At a gas station in a small town 2 hours north, I spoke to an old man sitting by the coffee machine. He was reading a tabloid about ghosts. Normally, I'd have ignored it. But something made me sit near him. He looked up. Narrow eyes. Nodded once. "You hear them too, huh?" he asked, like we were mid-conversation. I didn't answer. "You gotta be careful with silence," he said. "Used to be you needed candles and chanting to bring things through. Now, you just need loneliness." I finally asked, "What is it?" "The thing that copies." He blinked slowly. "Something old. Doesn't have a name worth saying. Doesn't kill you. Doesn't haunt you. Just waits. Waits for grief. Then it tries you on like a shirt." He took a sip of his gas station coffee. "If you wear your pain long enough," he said, "it starts thinking it fits too." I never saw him again. When I went back to the gas station the next day, the clerk said there was no old man working or sitting there. No one matching my description. I didn't argue. Maybe he was just another echo. I moved out of the house last month. Rented a small studio in a noisy building in the city. Constant traffic, neighbors yelling through the walls, elevator humming like a jet engine. I sleep with music playing. Different songs every night. Vinyl, cassette, radio, nothing digital. I don't answer the quiet anymore. And when I hear her voice now, and I still do, I don't respond. Because I know it's not her. The real Emily never asked me to listen. She just spoke, and I heard her because I loved her. Whatever speaks now. It asks. It waits. It listens for the listener. And I won't answer again. I once thought the final time I heard Emily's voice would be during the funeral. Not in the service itself, she was never one for ceremonies, but afterward, when everyone was gone and it was just me, standing under the trees, her name carved into stone. I said goodbye. Whispered it, really. Because somehow, a whisper felt more honest than a cry. But I was wrong. That wasn't the last time I heard her. It came again 2 weeks after I moved into the city. I'd done everything right. Crowded building. Thin walls. Old appliances that hissed and wheezed and droned. My new apartment had noise in its bones. It buzzed with life. And yet, silence still found me. I was brushing my teeth late one night when I heard the voice again. Not in the static. Not in the pipes. In my own mouth. I was humming a song, absently, one we danced to once. And then the hum turned into words. Not mine. Emily's. You always said this song made the room feel warmer. I dropped the toothbrush. My reflection didn't move. It stared back, smiling. Too slow. Too perfect. The same smile from the attic mirror. I stopped humming that day. Stopped singing. Stopped whistling. Stopped speaking to myself at all. Because I knew the truth now. The listener had never needed to be summoned. It had never needed a mirror or a voice recording. It only needed me, my thoughts, my memories, my habits. Grief isn't a doorway. It's a microphone. And I'd been holding it up to the dark every night. The final time I heard her, I wasn't asleep. I was sitting on a bench at a park near the edge of the city. Not a popular park. One of those small, forgotten green patches left behind between development projects. I liked it because the traffic was close. A constant hum behind the trees. It was dusk. Golden light, long shadows, kids shouting somewhere in the distance. I had her journal with me, the one I found behind the bed. I read through it again, for the 1000th time. And then her voice came. Not whispered. Not distant. Right next to me. I'm sorry. That's all she said. And I believed it was her. For once, there was no echo. No distortion. No attempt to lure. Just a soft, broken apology. I didn't speak. I didn't turn. I closed the journal and let the silence settle. Because I understood what she was really saying. I'm sorry I brought it with me. It hasn't spoken since. Not in mirrors. Not in recordings. Not in dreams. But sometimes, I still catch myself checking shadows. Not out of fear. But to make sure they're empty. To make sure it stayed behind. People ask me sometimes why I left my job. Why I live so simply now. Why I sleep with music on. Why I avoid silence. I usually smile and say I'm just learning to enjoy the noise. But the truth is, I've seen what waits when everything else is stripped away. I've heard it. And I'll never let it wear my voice again. It's been 7 months since the last voice. 7 months of sleep, half dreams, and carefully chosen noise. 7 months of forcing my thoughts into motion, keeping my mind like a street at rush hour, no empty lanes, no open silence for anything to slip into. And still, I feel it. Not hear it, feel it. Like pressure behind the walls. Like the weight of an extra person in the room, just outside the edge of recognition. Not always. But sometimes. Especially when I stop moving. Especially when I start remembering. The therapist told me grief was a process. But the truth is, grief isn't linear. Grief loops. It circles. It dips. It returns, not as a memory, but as echo. Familiar. Comfortable. And dangerous. Because the moment you sit with it too long, you start to believe the silence again. You start to listen. I bought a radio last week. An old AM/FM thing, all knobs and static and the occasional military broadcast from who knows where. I leave it on every night. Not for the music. For the imperfection. Digital noise is too clean now. Too sharp. Too still. But analog? It crackles. It hums. It sounds like the world breathing. And when something is breathing, the listener doesn't feel so alone. It hasn't spoken. But I know it wants to. I can feel the quiet get heavy sometimes. Like a phone ringing without sound. Like someone waiting for you to notice they've entered the room. And sometimes, I dream in second person. Not me seeing something. But something seeing through me. There was a night not long ago when I sat alone in my apartment, lights off, just the radio playing softly. Somewhere around 3:14 a.m., the signal shifted. A low hiss. Then, faint piano music. It was the song Emily used to play. The one from our wedding. My breath caught. The radio had no title display. No lyrics. Just the melody. Oh, you remember how they sounded? I've started volunteering at a grief group. Not to share. Not at first. Just to sit with people. Listen to them speak about those they lost. There's power in shared silence. Safe silence. I don't tell them about the voice, or the mirror, or the hallway in the dream. I just nod when someone says, "Sometimes I still think I hear him." Because I understand. And I also know what comes after that sentence if you let it linger too long. The last page in Emily's sleep journal said something I didn't understand back then. Now I do. When the silence starts to sound like someone you love, it's already too late. But it's never really too late. You just have to stop listening. Not to the world. Not to people. Not to music or dreams or even to the voice you hear crying out from your own memory. But to that version of them. The one that wants to be remembered wrong. The one that begs to be invited in. Sometimes, I sit with a photo of her. One taken on a hike years ago, her hair messy, sweat on her face, sun in her eyes. Laughing because she was trying to open a granola bar with her teeth. That photo is her. Imperfect. Real. Alive. Not the voice. Not the dream. Just the woman I loved. And I talk to that. Not aloud. Just inside. Quietly. Where the listener can't reach. If you've lost someone, and you hear them speaking in the night, don't answer. If your dreams bring them back, but they ask you to listen, don't respond. If the silence fills with warmth, and it feels like they're beside you again, don't believe it. Not right away. Because what's reaching for you might not be them. It might be what came back instead. I still live in the city. Still sleep with the hum of life around me. I still whisper to her sometimes, when I'm sure the words are mine. And I never record anything anymore. Not even this. Because I've learned. Even the act of remembering out loud is a kind of invitation.